Welcome. In this short video, we're going to look at some of the applications that come in the measuring of unemployment and understanding the type or source of unemployment. In a prior video, we talked in general about how unemployment is measured, the problems with measurement, and the different types of unemployment. And now we're going to do some applications. Measurement issues with unemployment, recall, included who is employed, who is unemployed, and together that makes up the labor force. There are issues with discouraged workers that drop out of the labor force that can give us a misleading picture of the unemployment problem. Types of unemployment include frictional, which comes from job change, going in and out of the labor force, structural, that comes from a change in economy and the skills that come with it, and cyclical, where there's insufficient demand due to a recession or a slow recovery from that recession. So when we're measuring unemployment issues, we're interested in the labor force participation rate, and that is the percent of the adult population that's in our labor force that's either actively working or actively looking for work. And then we're also interested in the unemployment rate, unemployed as a percentage of the labor force. Again, multiplying by 100 so we get the answer as a percent. So let's keep these measures in mind and let's come up with some numbers and see how this works. So in my example here, I have an adult population of 100 million. 5 million are unemployed. 75 million are employed. So let's start with what is the size of the labor force in this question. Not even a rate, but what's the size of the labor force in this question? Well, the labor force is everyone working for pay, the employed, everyone actively looking for work, the unemployed. And so we add the employed of 75, the unemployed of 5 million, and we come up with a labor force of 80 million. So in this specific example, we have a labor force of 80 million people. Now, same example, same set of numbers. Let's move forward and calculate the labor force participation rate. We have a labor force of 80 million. We have an adult population of 100 million. So using that formula on the previous slide, we calculate the labor force participation rate. The labor force is 75 plus 5, the 80 million. Our adult population is 100. And so we get a labor force participation rate of 80% in this example. Again, same example, but what is the unemployment rate? The unemployment rate here, we need to know the number of unemployed as a percentage of the labor force. The number of unemployed from this example is 5 million. Relative to a labor force of 80 million, that's 6.25%. So we have an unemployment rate here of 6.25%. Now let's change it up a little bit. So we start with our same example here. Now let's suppose that 1 million of the unemployed just drop out of the labor force. So 1 million of the unemployed here are going to become discouraged. Using that information, we're going to recalculate the unemployment rate. So what's the new labor force here? 1 million people have left the labor force. 80 minus 1 is 79, so we're left with a labor force of 79 million people. What's the new amount of unemployed? Well, all of those 1 million people that left the labor force in this example are unemployed. So that's 5 minus 1 and 4 million. So now we have 4 million unemployed out of a labor force of 79 million. We calculate the new unemployment rate. 4 divided by 79 and then multiply by 100 to get a percent. And we get 5.1%. So know what's happened here. Unemployment rate fell from 6.25% to 5.1%. Is that because people found jobs? No. It's actually because people became discouraged and left the labor force. So this example really highlights how discouraged workers can be a problem and can make the unemployment rate a little misleading. Now let's turn to an example about the types of unemployment. So in 1998, true story, almost 500 people were laid off and lost their jobs when a Rubbermaid plant closed in Cortland, New York. And it moved production to North Carolina, which was closer to the growing market. So Rubbermaid basically said population was shifting from the northeast to the southeast. We're going to move our plant where it's closer to where we sell our products to the most people. So this is an example of what type of unemployment. Is it cyclical, frictional, structural, or seasonal? Think about it for a minute. So what happened here is Rubbermaid's basically saying structure has changed. The demographics of the United States have changed, and we're going to move our manufacturing operations regionally in order to deal with it. So in 1998, the national economy was actually booming. So this is not cyclical. Factory closure here was due to a long-term shift of economic activity from the Rust Belt to the Sun Belt. Those jobs aren't coming back to Cortland, but they didn't disappear. They actually reappeared down in North Carolina. So the workers in Cortland, though, they'll have to either retrain and do something else or potentially relocate to where those jobs are. This is structural unemployment. And you can see the dilemma there for those Cortland workers and why it's such a serious type of unemployment. Second example, 2008, we have Olive Garden, and suppose Olive Garden in some city lays off 100 waiters due to fewer diners during the recession. What type of employment are we talking about? Cyclical, frictional, structural, seasonal? The key word here is recession. The key word is there wasn't sufficient demand for eating out because consumers are cutting back on their spending during a recession, and going out to eat is a fairly luxury item. So there's really no need to have as many waiters. Eventually the spending will improve as the economy improves, and Olive Garden might expand or at least hire back waiters that they had to lay off. This is cyclical unemployment. The demand for going out to eat just could not sustain the amount of waiters due to the economic slowdown.